Being fun at parties is actually quite simple, even if you consider yourself to be an introvert. And no, I'm not talking about the self-aggrandizing Redditor type of introvert. I'm talking about the anxious overthinkers. If you fall into the former category and you're above the age of 20, I'm sorry, but you can't be helped. So the only logical thing you can do if you're struggling is do a quick search on the internet. I'm sure there's plenty of good advice out there. It's actually quite simple to be fun at parties. You only need to be these three things. You just need to be charismatic, confident, and interesting. Contrary to popular belief, you don't actually need to be that charismatic. Just avoid saying stupid shit. In order to be relatable, use plain English as much as you can. Your goal should be to be just a regular guy. The reality is that after COVID, none of us really leave the house unless it's for a very specific reason. The average guy's social skills are so bad nowadays that just an average conversation can light up anyone's day. Most of us are forgetting that talking to each other is a thing that humans actually used to do. When people say that someone's charismatic, what they really mean is that they make me feel good. Charisma isn't about being the loudest and most entertaining person in the room. There's a good reason why these memes exist. And that's why being funny, self-assured, and letting others in on the fun will make you more charismatic than any other trait. Charismatic people also always tend to say the right things. This isn't because they're super creative geniuses, rather because they just don't talk that much. Everyone has great ideas, and being charismatic isn't about having the best idea, it's about not saying the shitty ones. Just stop trying to get a word in every single second of every single conversation. Everyone hates people like that. Keeping that in mind, speaking in terms of other people's interests is generally a really good idea. More on this later though. And finally, for the love of God, fix your body language. Act like a normal human being. Look people in the eye. Practice makes perfect. It's the summer of 2022 and I've just graduated high school. I'm at this huge house party getting absolutely faded. The host of the party is an extremely friendly guy who always has a smile on his face. At around 2 a.m. he suddenly disappears. No one's seen him for like 10 minutes now and we have 2 people looking for him. And that's when I see this figure descending from the top of the staircase. It's him. He's just switched the music to this funky Spanish-sounding song and he's coming down in nothing but a neon-colored man thong. Quite funnily, this incident changes my life forever. I expected everyone else to cringe at this just like I did, but the exact opposite happens. As he's coming down, he high-fives me. I awkwardly high-five him back. He's proper hyping everyone up. He's having fun. He goes over to this girl and starts dancing with her, and everyone seems to love him. And I'm just left standing there like, what the hell, what? And that's when I realized confidence is everything. You see, this guy was pretty average in terms of attractiveness. However, he was very confident in himself. You've probably seen this flirting versus harassment meme on the internet before, where this guy in the suit, this attractive-looking guy, goes up to the woman and says something, and on the other image, the exact same thing is said by a less attractive, nerdy, geeky-looking guy. And it is considered harassment rather than flirting. Most people logically conclude that it's because the guy's not as attractive as the other man, and that is somewhat correct. Obviously, if you're not as attractive due to the halo effect, people will consider you to be less competent as well. But even in the meme, you can see the difference in the confidence levels of the 2 guys. The masculine suited guy is like flirting, he's smiling, he's winking at the woman, and the other guy's just standing there waving awkwardly. He probably stuttered when he said it. So yes, attractiveness matters, but confidence is even more important. The single best way to develop confidence is by being congruent. When it comes to your actions, congruence basically means you say, think, and do the same things. If you watch a David Goggins video and you get the urge to go running and you tell yourself, you promise yourself that you're going to go running, you go and tell all of your friends about it, it's going to take a hit at your confidence if you don't actually go running after all of that. Most importantly, make sure that your thoughts and your actions are congruent with each other. There are cases where only these two should be congruent and what you say doesn't actually matter that much. If you don't want to tell everyone your plans, you want to be grinding in the dark, so to speak, or you want to be deceiving other people, lying to them intentionally for whatever reason, then it doesn't really matter. The point is to build a good self-image, to be who you actually think you are. That will translate into confidence over time. This is why sweating the small stuff when no one else is watching is actually the most important thing you can do. If you know who you are and what you're capable of, other people's opinions will soon become irrelevant. But if you want to skip all of that, you can just drink this. Always speak in the interest of other persons. This is the central philosophy of the book How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, and that's for a great reason. As we've now established, talking less is actually very productive if you want to be more charismatic, but in a funny way, it's also a great tactic if you want to be perceived as more interesting. And of course, it's still important to remain authentic and actually talk about the things that you want to talk about. But remember, just how you want to get so much out in every single conversation, making other people feel interesting by letting them talk will inherently make you more interesting. Now, of course, you don't want to make it sound like an interview, so when you do talk, what do you talk about? You can pretty much talk about anything you want, but there are going to be topics that are inevitably better than others. For example, talking about mainstream stuff such as the World Cup or Super Bowl will always trump talking about video games like League of Legends, especially at parties. So for example, let's say I'm talking to some athlete at a party and I need to speak about League of Legends for some reason. I'm not just going to start yapping about the lore of my favorite champion in League of Legends because he doesn't give a shit about that. I'd probably go about it in a way where I'd talk about the rising esports scene and how competitive it is and how much funding it's getting, and related to his sport and how that has a competitive scene. Maybe he'd be a bit more interested in that. But if you're genuinely a boring person, no amount of verbal heavy lifting is going to save you from that fact. I had to come to terms with this fact at around 17 years of age. I started to realize that who I was as a person was simply not enough to get what I wanted. I wanted to get the respect of my peers, I wanted to get money, the attraction from girls. But all I did was play video games, listen to music, watch movies, and occasionally play a few sports. So I had to reinvent myself. I started going super hard on self-improvement, and so I got into the gym, building muscle, I got into business and all of this type of stuff. What I realized was I was being super inauthentic with myself. I was losing all of my personality. The advice to be yourself is actually pretty good advice if you're a person that is good, if you're a person that you're happy with. I rekindled my relationship with my hobbies. Instead of leveling up through video games, I started leveling up physically through the gym and digitally through business, which led me to a life that I'm much happier living right now. The problem is that most people don't even like themselves. So I think self-improvement is a great thing as long as you're not attaching your identity to it. The way I view it right now is that I'm not a person on self-improvement. I'm just a person who wants things and realizes that change is a good thing. And finally, to wrap up this section, just realize that everyone has something they can teach you and everyone has a story they're dying to tell. Make it your mission to extract these. Remember to speak occasionally, don't go full interviewer mode, but only speak when you have good things to say. Be comfortable with silence. It may occur. Join my free school community right now. Goodbye.